Welcome, friends and family, to the SAND Online Summit, where we are talking about wisdom in times of crisis. I am here with a very, very special person, Emmet. And Ellen is unique. She has a profound gift for being able to speak both the world of psychotherapy and the world of feeling, of naturally being in the physical body. She has a degree in movement, a master's degree in movement, as well as psychotherapy, psychology, and her practice as someone that helps people work through the mental blockages also interweaves with her ability to help people work through the physical blockages and bring us back to a place of feeling, which I imagine is where the spirit comes in, the mind, the body, and the spirit. Ellen, welcome.
Thank you. Hi. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
You as well. We're so grateful that you have it in your schedule and your life to be able to join us for this really special experience. I'm so curious. I have so much curiosity for where you're holding this entire experience, this, what some of us call a crisis, what others call an opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what is this feeling like for you? What has this been like for you?
It's really a multi-layered question, I guess, and the answer would be multi-layered too, because there's the individual experience, the circumstantial experience, my own life and how it affected me as a person, and then of course, I think in this time we're somehow the barriers have fallen, even though we're all in lockdown. There's something about this time that, everybody's saying it, and especially in our circles, the barriers have fallen in the sense that we're all sharing a circumstance globally that we're not in control of, So there's this feeling of not knowing, which I'm actually enjoying on some level. It resonates with a kind of quality I've been longing or exploring my whole life. So there's a kind of feeling of being met these days, because you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know the outcome or the unfolding, or and yet you're sharing this with the whole world. So there's that dimension. It's a kind of very internal time, and at that level of not knowing, and at the same time, it's a very connecting time, because everybody, even though we're not seeing each other, we're Zooming and we're webinaring and we're exploring and thinking and sharing and reading. So it's a very fertile time for those of us who can afford that, because I'm also very aware that some people are just wrestling with it on the front line. And that's abstract for me, because I know a few people who are on the front line, in hospitals, or who have been ill, or people whose close ones have been ill and even died, but it's still abstract for me. So there's that dimension too, that how do I hold the suffering when I'm not actually palpable, when it's not palpable. So it's all of that. And then in my work, it's really, nothing has changed in my work with people. I just wanted to add to your introduction that if my primary interest or longing or way of meeting people, I wouldn't call it psychotherapy anymore, even though I think probably in whatever bio you read, it's really more of the non-dual teaching married to an exploration of the felt sense, and of maybe you could call it shadow work, or working with the dimensions of the human experience that call us. So it's not psychotherapy in a conventional way, but so that work is just unfolding as it always has with people, and then actually I just feel that it's just a deepening at this time. People are exploring the same things, we're just people with stories, with dramas, with and maybe this time is just I don't know, maybe the word would be excavating certain layers more, certain things that ordinarily we can keep a lid on because we're busy, and we can plan and we can futurize and our focus is outward and the distractions are well in place. But in this time our, we, all of that's somewhat taken away from us, and that's such a great opportunity, because no, so it's just, okay, here, now, my stuff, what do I do, how do I meet it?
So beautiful. Thank you for being so honest. I really appreciate your ability to just be honest and speak the experience for yourself, and also acknowledge that you don't know what it's like for everyone, that we're having different experiences, yet we're having a very similar experience. And within what you're saying, I also see this vision of a collective humbling. I think when we're brought together in a place where we the birth of friendship, the birth of true connection and reflection, it seems as though it's when we have something in common with someone else, whether that's love or it's a similarity, a mirroring. And this has kind of brought us all into a place of commonality where we're all experiencing, whether you want to call it trauma or awakening or humbling.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that with some of that is us all being brought into the same frequency of experience? So even though it may not be a desirable experience to many, it brings us to the place of oneness, in that we're having one experience to many.
Yes,
similar experience.
I definitely can feel that people are more aware than ever of our interconnectedness. At least the people I'm seeing, and of course, you and I and all the people at Science and Non-Dual, we are part of a very privileged group of people that are open in this way and are exploring, etc. But yes, absolutely, I feel it's a time where the kind of individual path doesn't hold up anymore. It's like we need each other. It's clear, and we need nature. We need the trees and the birds and the. It's a wake up call, and I haven't yet, myself, even though I'm here in a position of a teacher. Honestly, I have not yet even begun in a way to heed the lesson, to really integrate the lesson of these times, and so I'm just humbled. I think did you just use that word, humble? I love that word, humble.
Yeah.
I find myself quite humble these days, and in some ways it's directly connected to the COVID situation. And another, it's just related to my own personal journey that I find myself, and I don't know why, is it a coincidence, but I find that in my personal journey now, I am questioning or deepening into some of the teachings that I received. I received the non-dual understanding years ago in a very particular way, and I find that at this moment in time, and again, is it a coincidence? I don't know. I don't trace a connection directly with this crisis, but I'm finding that I'm having to. It's not even a choice. Having to explore more deeply my direct experience. It's hard to put into words, but in my very personal circumstance, I'm being asked to explore more deeply and to do my inner work more deeply. And I don't think I want to get into it here. It's not the place, but I imagine that this is happening in a field that's a communal field, a bigger field. We're all kind of hearing this vibration that draws us deeper, maybe, and demands something of us, possibly, and at the same time connects us so that we find the support to do the work, whatever it is for each one of us. Some of us are on the non-dual path, some of us are on a more trauma healing path. It doesn't really matter, I think. I don't know, do you see it that way, Katie?
Yeah, I do. I think that when you describe yourself as not knowing what your the lesson is, how it's going to reveal itself. I think of something like, uh, I think of trust. I think of wisdom. I think of these experiences that are like trees that take time to grow naturally, and you can't force trust. Trust happens naturally. It just unfurls with time. Given the experience of life, we just naturally open ourselves to trust. And I think, like wisdom, we can't install wisdom. It comes from within. And like you're saying, I think that what's happening now is the experience, all of the training, the watering and the sunlight and the soil, everything's in place. You've prepared this, and we may just realize that it's growing. Our understanding of what's happening in this experience, our awakening, may just happen without us consciously being aware that it's happening. We may look back and realize that you don't think the same way you thought 6 months ago, and that you've just evolved into a place where it wasn't a starting and an end point, or an end point and a starting point. I think it may just blossom from us naturally.
Yeah, that's nice. I like how you say that. I was feeling the other day that we've been undone by this situation, kind of, in some ways. Not in all ways. It doesn't mean that the wisdom that some of us have acquired is dismantled, or our deep understanding, for example, or a deep understanding of what our essential being is. That's nothing, in a way. We know nothing can touch that. That is always present. It's ever present, in no matter what the circumstance. But the circumstance, nevertheless, undoes us at the same time. It's destabilizes our
Unravels, maybe.
Our identities, unravels, and that's a very it means that there's a letting go that's almost imposed by the situation, which puts us in the stream of life and her intelligence, and we don't really know what that is at the moment where we're taken, when we're unraveled. We can only submit with our deepest intuition, moment by moment, whatever our compass is that we've developed, and again, it will be different for each one of us. That stays with us, but something is undone. And I find that very not mysterious, actually. I find that very familiar, but it's
familiar, yeah.
You cannot articulate it with your usual means. You're not ready to articulate it. You don't know yet. Maybe you're not meant to articulate it. And at the same time, you still can rely on some of the tools that, I know I rely, and I share for example, the exploring of the body, in the light of awareness, and the really diving into the felt sense, and trusting the kind of wilderness of the body. So there are things, each one of us, again, will have our tools, our ways of exploring our experience. Those are still maybe available, but they come to life. They really come full expression, like, okay, yes, now they really mean something. Whereas perhaps before they were not quite alive, or...
Beautiful. When you share that, the unraveling, I'm seeing this vision, the imagery of, and as you're describing, what is it? It's both unfamiliar and yet very familiar. And what that brings me to, Ellen, is the primal might be one word, but it's beyond primal. It's beyond the physical. It's the knowing within the universal self, of where life and birth and death and change, and where I think of a child in the womb, and how everything opens and change happens. And it's something very very familiar in the DNA of knowing this is what's meant to happen, but it can also feel very alarming and unfamiliar.
Because it's life doing her thing, and it's not me mastering and controlling and knowing in that particular way that we can know, which is a very objectifying way. And maybe the invitation in such a circumstance as we're sharing is the invitation that's always here. That's like, no, yes, it's important to know. It's the gift of the human mind. It can know, it can objectify and explore, and scientists and philosophers and blah, blah, blah. But then there's this other form of knowledge which is innate to life, and perhaps perhaps I don't want to genderize this conversation, but something to do with the feminine. I can't help but say that there's something like that, that connection with life and death, life in her blossoming and in her decay. And
Would you say maybe
get
mother?
more
Because
people and try
if we
to
think of
talk.
like birth, like the mother, do you know what I mean? Like it's, maybe if not feminine, then just because whether you're male or female, you can have maternal instinct. I wonder if that's
Yeah, say more of what you mean now, Katie, like about the maternal.
when you say the leaning into this to her, to her wisdom, and to, as you say, it's, for lack of a better word to describe it, as feminine as opposed to masculine, or indifference, that change sometimes comes through the mother, and that's just, you know, that it's the maternal, the who can encompass and withhold the massive change, and wrap around us with security,
That's
just the
beautiful.
way that a mother would. I'm curious
Yeah,
if that feels resonant to what you're saying.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I totally resonate with the sense, the quality of what you're saying, that sense of trusting this unfolding, which of 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 something rising up, a birthing, and then of experience, whatever it may be. But if we're talking about the current situation, something is being birthed, and something is being something is being something that is very organic and very natural, and that we're somehow having to submit to without our usual reliance on knowledge or on our means of controlling. So in that sense, maybe that it's beyond control. It's hard to talk about this the way we're trying to talk about it, but it's beautiful to try. It's hard to.
It's the unknown. So of course, I think when we talk
Exactly.
about the unknown, we're in the space of the unknown. We have
And I
there's
think it's
unknown.
important, yeah, it's important then also to turn back to what we do know in this time. You know, like, what do I actually know, and where do I go to know what I know? And here, I think, is where the non-dual teaching, experientially, to really, whatever this may mean for each one of us, to really find that which I know. So in some cases, if it's the non-dual teaching, it's in the now, to really just come back to the simple fact of beingness, or of awareness, or whatever we choose to call it. That is always here, no matter what the circumstance. So that's one thing that we can return to, and then another aspect is to come to the felt sense, the body, in the now, because that's a way to purify our experience of any concepts or any thinking or any futurizing, and just be with a raw, direct, felt sense, which has its own intelligence. And I think it's really important to just drop into that sometimes, without even an agenda to heal the trauma, or to this or to that, just to, for no reason, to listen to that dimension. And the listening to that dimension automatically, if we have no agenda, places us in a kind of openness, a kind of vibrational openness, that at first is directed to our own body, you could say, but at some point something relaxes and widens, and we can maybe touch I want to call it love, openness, love, welcoming, allowing, a sense of all is well. So that's something we can kind of rely on. We have our experience that we can rely on no matter what. And at the same time, the not knowing. It's a paradox that.
I'm so beautiful. Again, I'm seeing us kind of expanding out of this comfortable space of in the beginning you were explaining what I imagine to be the story, the confines of what we know to be true, and that's become unraveled. So then we become humbled to just know how much bigger it is. So we go into this space of the unknown, and for some of us that may be more comfortable, but for others of us, the unknown, we lose our sense of security and our grounding. And I love what you're saying is, I see us kind of floating into space of the unknown. And you're saying, and there's a tether, and the tether is the physical, the felt sense, you have access and contact with the ground, with what you do know, meaning your body, coming back to presence. And
Yeah.
I love that. I see us as a one hand in space and the other holding the body during this time, and holding sensation, and making sure that we're present, because there is I think there might be a tendency, especially if someone has been through trauma, there may be a tendency to pull out of the body and to feel lost in the overwhelm of the unknown. But
Well, because
what if
if the unknown becomes a concept, you see, we as soon as we call it the unknown, not knowing, which we have to, because it's we are trying to speak about this, but what are we saying really? It's just a concept. So not knowing, it's not really, the unknown is a concept, but when we go to the body, at first, of course, the body is something we know because we have a concept or an image, or etc. But when we really drop into the felt sense in the now, without a concept, it becomes a flow, right? A kind of flow of sensations and energies and feelings, and if we don't manipulate this experience, if we really stay as just as the simple listening of it, something takes place. Something takes place. It's like not knowing becomes the known. The known and not knowing merge, or we're no longer in the realm of concepts. It's everything is okay. There is just it's I am that, but I am both that flow that is called the body, and I am that presence in which the body unfolds and out of which the body is made. And those are words. So when I describe it that way, again, the mind will go, yeah. But when you go there somehow experientially, then it leaves you later on with the reverberation of that understanding, with more steadiness, with more peace, with more capacity and availability to function within, the drama of your life, where you're not always doing this kind of very deep exploration, but having done the deep exploration over and over again, you're more in touch with the not knowing quality of life. It's always like that. I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I think it's very difficult to talk as for me.
You're doing such a beautiful job, but there's no apologies. Everything you're saying is so profound. I love everything that you're sharing. And I think this is the way of trying to put into words feelings.
That's right.
And essentially what I'm hearing you say is these are feelings, these are experiences, and we need to be also aware that when we put them into words, we encapsulate them into story, and then the mind takes over. That's right. But yet you and I are trying to have a conversation with words about feelings. So it is a unique scenario that we have, but you're doing a beautiful job. It's just beautiful. And I think that, I'm seeing, Ellen, that you've been, I can't help but think that we've been trained, that you in particular have been trained in your life to acquire these tools and to not know exactly what this tool does, but to know that you've acquired it and it's in your back pocket and you have this tool as well. And, it'll come in handy at some point and you've got that as well. And sometimes the need for the tools emerges and reveals itself. And I think that everything that you have been trained and experienced and acquired intellectually and mentally and energetically, I feel as though you're bringing your medicine forward. These tools are coming in handy, such as bringing us back into the felt sense. This has been a fascination of yours and an experience, the non-dual, this realm of the life experience, and coming into presence and finding within that the inner self that is formless and ageless and sexless and shapeless. I'm so curious, with your knowledge and your awareness and years of practice, what are potentially some tools and steps that come to mind as far as someone saying, well, this is so great, what are some steps I could take? It could be just simple actions that I could explore, or it could even just be one, but a meditation, or is it what do you do to bring yourself back into the felt sense and to bring out of the mind?
It's ever so simple in my case, and I think that's what I like to share, is something that's absolutely simple, which would be, to begin with, to eyes closed, because when you close your eyes, you're simplifying life. You don't, you're tending inwardly somehow, and ever so simple in the sense that it's just a simple allowing of experience in moment by moment. So and to begin with, it doesn't only include the body, it includes the thoughts, it includes the perceptions, it includes the range of experience that we may have at any given moment. But then in the exploration that I like to share, we kind of focus on the body, but we don't focus on the body. In fact, we are this kind of global listening. Our attention is not focused. It's as if I was the space, the available space, and the body is allowed to sing its song. And so there's no agenda. That's the thing in this kind of exploration. It's what is being shared is the non-violent being with, the absolutely undemanding being with experience, which in fact is our true nature at every moment. It's not something we need to do. It's already the case. But when as a practice, we can do it until we realize nobody's doing it. It's already done. It's what I am. I am this welcoming of experience. And at the same time, there's this liberation of the body, because the body is usually felt as the envelope for me. I live in this body bag, right? And I am limited and I am separate from you and from the world, etc. So as we welcome the body directly, without agenda, tasting, really tasting the texture, the temperature, the weight, and without naming those. So it's an art, to really not name, not conceptualize. Really, it's tactile. As we do that, we realize, not conceptually, we realize, oh, I'm not encapsulated in a body bag. We realize something else. We start to taste a sense of limitlessness tactily, a sense of not being located, behind the eyes, a sense of the body being free to no longer be the envelope for awareness, but to be an expression of awareness. All those are fancy words that I say. And I don't like saying these words because they, as you said earlier, the mind will go, oh yeah, great. No, but it's like you go there and in that exploring, it's like we're explorers of experience. We do discover something about who we truly are. And then we come out of the practice and we're back inevitably in a more limited shape, right? Of Katie or Ellen or Ron, but we went and had a bath in our limitlessness, and now we come back and we have to wrestle with our stuff, but it will have left a trace, or it will have, it's like love waved at us, and then I don't know, it just gives us more tools. It's not tools, it's a horrible word, right? But a more understanding to live a life that isn't so divided. We feel more, it allows us to feel the connection that we were talking about earlier. But it doesn't, what's the word I'm trying to, it doesn't excuse us from doing our personal inner work. That too needs to be done, I believe. And that's done more wrestling with our circumstance, with our loved ones, with our, if we're in therapy, you know, really going and looking at our projections and our beliefs and our traumas, so that there's a place for that too.
I love this.
Lots to do.
I love it. I love you. I love everything that you're sharing. I almost feel this breath, like the lungs, you know, when you inhale and the lungs expand, we have to exhale. We have to come back to the,
Yeah.
like, and so what you're saying, you're almost stretching your lungs capacity, like, and you won't stay there indefinitely. You have to return back to the physical self, and as you say,
the human self, you know, it's
the humanness. Yeah.
It's we are waves, as we are the ocean, yes, but hey, there's Ellen, over there's Katie. That's not nothing, right? And Katie's got, I'm sure, loads of layers and stories and conditionings and a path, a trajectory, and so does Ellen. And it's not something, it's sacred, it's absolute. And there it's more nitty-gritty, you know, it's not, we're not just tasting the limitlessness and the unlocated nature of our true being. There we're tasting difficult things, our sadness, our anger, our fear, our memory of our childhood, our pain body, and we have to wrestle with it. We have to do our work. We have to do our work. Which again, for each one will be different. But I do feel at this time, maybe there's big wake up call for all of us to be, and as a collective, to look down there where we don't like to look. Some of us like to look, but
Yeah. Wow. I'm brought back to the word that emerged for us of being humbled.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm curious, you know, is it more humbling to enter into the space of oneness and interconnectedness, where you realize that yours is just a small, a little piece of the giant story? Or is it more humbling to be brought into your body and to have to continue doing the human experience? There's
I guess
an
they're yeah. I think they're both experiences of humility. When you really recently I went on the ayahuasca journey for the first time, and that, I think, was the main teaching, was the humility. First I was shown my arrogance, you know, in ways that ayahuasca, some of you may have explored with that medicine, and it's indescribable in a way how the teaching comes. But it was about humility, and the way I knew humility was that I tasted my arrogance, you know, and it's the humility you just mentioned of knowing you, the interconnectedness of all beings and all things, and you're tiny little, you're just tiny. And then when we do our inner work, there we're back in our full, like, drama, me. But it is also very humbling, because if we really do our inner work, we have to face pretty humbling things, you know. our ego, our attachments, are all the ways that we learn to compensate for that initial wounding, which is, it's innocent, but it is a humbling experience to really see it, to really face it, to really let it come. Right?
Yeah. I think that oftentimes the humanness, the story, the layers, the story, the ego, the capsule, the little, you know,
Caps.
the capsule, the story that goes around the bodysuit, this orb that can sometimes have a thick shell around it. I
Yeah.
think sometimes we, drawing us back into this larger current scenario of this, you know, virus or a crisis or pandemic. Sometimes, I mean, it's my understanding that we create that shell for protection, that
Mm.
that shell is in place because we have been hurt or we've been
Yeah.
scared or we felt uncomfortable being vulnerable. And I think that's another, um, the humility, the vulnerability of allowing yourself to be freed without the shell, to take that off and be vulnerable and realize I'm nothing, like I'm something, but I'm a part of the everything, and I'm no more important than that tree. And that can feel, if that shell is in place to make me feel safe and important and like I am somebody, and then to say I am just one of everything. I think it can be vulnerable to go into that space. And I think of what's happening now and the vulnerability that is happening in a way, like from the beginning of our conversation, you explaining that there's a disassemblance, an unraveling. And I see that being what's unraveling is that giant individual shell of protection and then the collective shell of protection. And I believe what I'm hearing from your beautiful sacred sharing is, without that shell, yes, it's unknown, but then we open up into the everything, into where we are the spirit that's just temporarily housed in the body. And this is an opportunity. This is
Yeah.
when that shell comes off. I mean, ayahuasca or deep psychotherapy or trauma, or there's ways that we can, a near-death experience that just cracks that shell
It
open.
does crack. But the process is really the scene of the shell, the actual tasting the shell, where the shell was my identity. So I was not in a way aware of the shell, the fear or the defensiveness or the assertiveness or whatever it was that constitutes me as a separate being. At some point, as you say, with this circumstance or with an ayahuasca journey or just through the inner work we do, we have to actually taste what that shell is, and that would be the humbling part, the part where we are humbled, like we're humbled. It's like she's taking us and she's going like here. And at that moment we are like completely feeling the whatever it is, the shell of the moment, the layer of shell of the moment, which might be a fear or terror of letting go or anger or need or all the things that a little being that's trying to survive feels. Neediness and dependency and all those things. In a way, it's, in the end, it might never completely go, that shell, because it seems to be a very human thing, but for us to really wrestle with it, be aware, be willing to face it, to own your stuff, to taste the waves of feelings, the unpleasant ones, to really, what is fear if I don't immediately connect it to the story, but just if I feel it in its raw. What is anger? Like, and if we do that work, and then also obviously explore it at a more personal, relative level, yeah, it goes a long way in delivering some love and intelligence and in liberating us to be more available, more but it's a journey, isn't it?
It is. It's both. Um, I think of that shell. I think of for someone to look at their anger and something that was installed in place uh, out of protection. And I think of uh, the ability to look within and to look at the undesirables, to look into the shadows. I think it's both vulnerable and courageous, and I think that's where they become one. The vulnerability and courage to be with what is we live in a world, in a society and collective cultures that encourages to not be with the uncomfortable, to
Well, we
continue.
don't know. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we live in a culture that has forgotten how to do that. Even now, even with all the, I mean, maybe I think it's changing, but we actually don't, it's not something we're taught in schools. And we're still in a culture that favors reason and rational ways of knowledge, and not the dropping down into this area. It requires another form of knowing, another form of knowing what I know, that where you would trust the feelings more, even the aggression and the anger. It's not that you would trust it literally and go, but you would know that it's part of this whole cycle of life. Fear, all these feelings, you know that they have their place, but you don't know, you don't exactly know. They are powerful instinctual feelings, and you don't exactly, and they're not meant to be mastered and controlled and repressed, and you don't know exactly. And we don't have too much modeling of how to be with those realms anymore. And I think in ancient times, or in shamanic, there are cultures where they know their rituals, and their ways of working with energies. But in our Western culture, it's a little bit like we do trauma work, and some of it is getting back into that. But
And I think in the Western world, just even the confrontation with death and with great change and with birth,
yeah,
and with it's unfamiliar, and yet it's very, very familiar.
yeah,
And
of course, because we're made out of that, right? So,
we're
but yeah,
designed to die, we're
exactly.
designed we're designed to.
It's all there, all the
Yeah.
knowledge is there, but something has been split off through conditioning, cultural conditionings, that it's like we have to reclaim certain things. And in order to do that, what we need to reclaim isn't going to be found, through thinking only. Of course, thinking, but also feeling and dropping into another territory that's a little bit wilder, maybe, or go, and we can go back to, or go to those cultures that are still in touch with that way of knowing. They are there, and even in ancient Greece, the Dionysian rituals and the mysteries, and there were ways that people were staying in contact with life and death, and the cycles, and the sacredness of that was right there. It's
Wow, so powerful. Ellen, I know our time is going to be coming to a close. I wish we could have our weekly talk, our weekly televised talk, because this is so beautiful, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface. If we think of you and I having this conversation, and then we think of all of us having this conversation, even though you and I are the ones with the video and the microphones, we're all sitting together in this big room, those of us that are tuning in right now. And in a sense, we're all having this shared experience. We have opened ourselves. We've said yes, the intuitive calling to rise up and step forward and tune in, led us to being together right now in this moment. And as you said, it's a select group of people, perhaps privileged, and that have access, and and the resources to be able to say yes and to take action. Though I don't want to underestimate the power of what this can create when we do say yes, because we were gifted those resources and we utilize them to step forward and reach higher levels of connection and then spread that with the rest of the world. If we imagine you and I together now with dozens and hundreds and thousands, we're together, and you are able to tap us into this mycelial connection of thought. Ellen, what would be the dream vision or the intention? If you could just say an intention or plant a seed into our collective minds, you're given this magical opportunity, and we're all just going to sit back and receive the Ellen seed. What would that? I know this is a big opportunity. But
I mean, and we're like a teaching or like a.
It's a seed of. It could be a vision.
Zaya. I know Zaya's at the. Okay.
Because I want us to just hold this soil. We're all holding the soil, and you are just going to plant a seed of intention. I mean, there's probably hundreds that you could choose from, but what would be one that we could right now just all hold together?
I think what's coming, it really simply is for each one of us to really listen to our deepest desire, to really follow and trust your deep desire. And I'm not talking here about the superficial desires for objects, and to really, and in order to know that desire, maybe you need to not know what it is to begin with, to really drop in and drop into your bodies and into your felt sense and listen and see, because your soul isn't up there in the headquarters, in the head area. That's bureaucracy. The soul is somewhere else. And so, to go ask the soul what it wants, what it desires. Because our souls are so connected. So if we all take care of our individual soul, I don't even know what that word means, but then somehow we're looking after the one soul, the soul of souls. And to go innocently, like children, trustingly, like children, like well-parented children, even though we weren't all well-parented. Because we're in good hands, that's for sure. I'm certain of that. That's it.
Oh, giving you a big hug.
You too. So lovely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. That was so nourishing and authentic and fresh. And I think that you give us the permission to be real and to have a real conversation, and also permission to expand into the abstract realms, because that's how we're going to chart new territory, is by going into new territory. So thank you for allowing that permission for yourself and taking us with you. And thank you, Ronald, for doing the engineering right now. We really appreciate the SAND team for putting this together and holding down the fort so these really incredible conversations can come forward. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, SAND family and friends. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ellen.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.